Man, I'm so excited about this series on grit, and I got the whole idea from Angela Duckworth in her book on the power of perseverance and not quitting. And so that's what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes and the next few weeks. And grit is a huge deal. I mean, it's not like talent. Talent, something's given to you. But grit is something you can develop. It's something you can grow in. And I just personally believe that grit beats talent every time in the long run. And so you say, well, why is that so important? Because if you continue to, like when you get discouraged or tired or whatever, to quit, you're going to be a jumper. You're going to jump from marriage to marriage, job to job, school to school. You get the picture. And you can actually grow in being grittier when times get tough. Now, we have an app that you can go to and you can take a test on the grit scale and find out where you fit and find out how far you need to go in developing grit. But the one group that I think probably needs to hear this message more than any other group, and it's not the millennials, that would be your first thought, it's the baby boomers. The people born between 1946 and 1964, the ages 55 to 75, and there are a lot of them. Okay, 1/3 of our population is in that category, and that group, get this, spends more than any other group by far, $548.1 billion a year on themselves. So I'm going to talk just a moment to what I call the bougie generation, the bourgeois class, the people that really are the ruling class, that have margin, that have money, that have time, that still have energy, and how easy it is for them to be less gritty and really get set in a routine as they get older. So we're going to look at Joshua chapter 14. And let me give you the background real quick so that you know what's happening here. Moses, the book of Exodus, exiting out of Egypt, and he's taking them to the promised land. And they get to the edge of the promised land, and for some reason they appoint a committee. It must have been a Baptist church. And 10 of the 12 people on the committee who were older said, we can't go. There's no way we can do this. I mean, they quit. They stopped. I mean, and here's Joshua. Really, it's Caleb that's talking first. Caleb says, we can do this. We can make this work. I mean, I love Caleb. He didn't get a book named after him. He doesn't get like the focal point, but he's the guy that's like, hey, we need to move forward. So roll the clock forward 45 years, and in Joshua chapter 14, you hear these words. Now, the people of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephthah, the Kenizzite, said to him, you know that what the Lord had said to Moses, the man of God, at Kadesh Barnea about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought back to him a report according to my convictions. I love that. But my fellow Israelites who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt with fear. I, however, followed the Lord, my God, wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land in which your feet have walked to be your inheritance and that of your children forever, because you have followed the Lord, my God, wholeheartedly. That keeps coming up. Now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive 45 years since that time that Moses said this, while Israel moved about in the wilderness. So here I am. I'm 85 years old, and I'm still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out in battle as I ever was. Now give me the hill country that the Lord promised me on that day. And you yourself heard that the Anakites were there, and the cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out, just as he has said. And Joshua blessed Caleb, the son of Jephthah, and he gave him Hebron as his inheritance. And Hebron has belonged to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. And Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, who was one of the great men of the Anakites, one of the giants. And the land had rest from war. Now, let me give you verse by verse real quick, 7 things that you find in the character of Caleb that made him gritty and really kept him gritty for 115 years. And the first is he stayed engaged. He said, I have convictions. He said, the reason I'm still in is that I have convictions of what the Lord said he's going to do in me. And I'm going to do that. And here's the question I have. What are the convictions you have? And maybe it goes all the way back to VBS, Vacation Bible School, or when you were 7, or when you came to know Christ, or when you were at an event or in a camp. What has God said to you? Those can be your convictions, and they'll lead you to contribute and not just consume. He also was enthused. It says he was wholehearted. Enthused literally means in theos, God. God in you and you in God. And it's easy to get negative as you get older. And that enthusiasm can wane if you don't stay close to him because you've seen some bad things. You've had some heartache. You end up hurting in places that you didn't have at one time. And you sit down in what I call the death chair, the recliner. The third thing about him is he was expectant. He said, God promised me this, and I believe him. He said, God promised, I believe, and that settles it. He said, I expect God to do what he says, and I do too. And if God has told you something, then you can expect he's going to fulfill it because that's the way God works. I mean, the reason I preach new sermons instead of old sermons, and the reason I lean into all the younger staff and the vision that we have is I'm expectant. Because God has told me that we've got years, we've got decades of movement of God. The fourth thing is he was excited. He said, I'm still here. I'm still alive. He said, I'm 85 and I'm still alive. And he could say that because he had hope. The Bible says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. You say, well, how do I know if I have hope? Well, are you thinking more about the past, or are you talking more about the future? You talk about the good old days and how great they are, but you don't realize that today is the good old days. If you're doing that, stop it. You're wasting energy. Move forward. God has a plan for you. He's energetic. He said, I'm still as vigorous today as I was 45 years ago. He said, I've stayed active. Tom Brady, I not necessarily like him, but the guy gets it. He stayed active. He stayed in the game. At 42, he's running a faster 40 than he did at 21. You said, that's because of Gazelle. No, Gazelle would kill you, bro. It's the fact he never quit, and God doesn't want you to quit. He sets an example. I love this. He says, I'll take the high place. He said, you know, the high place where all the giants are, the Anakites, that was Goliath. That was his family. These are the 9-foot tall people, the people that had like the end of the spear was 60 pounds. They had walls around the city that were 6 floors high. He says, I want to be an example. I want to take it. I want to take that ground. I want to take the high ground. Byron Malone says it this way. He says, through the years of ministry with young people, I always find that younger people, gravitate to the most positive older person in the room. I believe that. The age of 50 to 80 is your greatest time of influence. And it's a time that you're really tempted to lay down. The one person that hasn't done that in our church that I've seen is my father-in-law, 84 years old. Serves, goes. Never stops, never quits, and everybody in the room gravitates toward him. Why is that so important? Because of the endowment. You're leaving a legacy of faith. Your family doesn't need your 401k. They need your faith. The 401k without your faith is going to be a disaster, and God has more for you. He's not through with you. He loves you. He's got a plan for you. Follow your convictions, grow in your grit, and never stop. God bless you. I love you guys. Can't wait to talk to you next time.